The tranquil town of Greenfield was jolted to its very core when the body of Jack Thompson was discovered in his modest home on the outskirts of town. Jack, a well-liked middle-aged man known for his generosity and calm demeanor, had recently endured a tumultuous divorce from his wife, Leah. The divorce, finalized just a few months prior, had visibly strained Jack, but no one could have anticipated the tragic end he would meet. Leah Thompson, once Jack's high school sweetheart and longtime partner, had quickly moved on after their split. She found solace in Derek Stone, a charismatic yet troubled man with a shadowy past. Derek, a former convict with a history of violent offenses, had swept Leah off her feet, bringing a sense of danger and excitement into her life that she had never experienced before. The discovery of Jack's lifeless body under suspicious circumstances set off a whirlwind investigation that unraveled a tangled web of deceit, betrayal, and revenge. The love triangle between Jack, Leah, and Derek became the focal point of the investigation, revealing dark secrets and hidden motives beneath the surface. Greenfield's local police force, led by Detective Sarah Lawson, was tasked with untangling the complex relationships and uncovering the truth behind Jack's untimely death. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that this was not just a simple crime of passion but a meticulously planned act of vengeance. In the weeks that followed, the town would witness shocking revelations and unexpected twists as the true nature of the relationships between Jack, Leah, and Derek came to light. The line between victim and perpetrator blurred, leaving everyone to wonder who could be trusted and who was hiding the darkest secrets. Jack and Leah Thompson's marriage had once been the epitome of stability and love. They had met in high school, their romance blossoming over the years into a marriage that seemed unbreakable. Jack, a kind-hearted man who worked as a schoolteacher, had always been the rock in their relationship. Leah, a nurse at the local hospital, complemented his steadiness with her nurturing and compassionate nature. However, as the years passed, the spark in their relationship began to fade. The stresses of daily life, combined with their inability to have children, placed a strain on their marriage. Leah's desire for excitement and change grew, leading her to seek solace outside their relationship. This quest for something new ultimately led her to Derek Stone. Derek Stone was a man with a troubled past. He had spent several years in prison for armed robbery and assault, but upon his release, he vowed to turn his life around. His rugged good looks and charm quickly won Leah over, offering her the thrill and unpredictability she craved. Derek's presence in her life provided a stark contrast to the stability she had known with Jack. The affair between Leah and Derek was passionate and intense, leading to the eventual breakdown of her marriage to Jack. The divorce was bitter, with accusations and recriminations flying from both sides. Jack was devastated, unable to comprehend how the woman he had loved for so long could betray him in such a manner. Leah, on the other hand, felt liberated, ready to start a new chapter with Derek. Despite his attempts to move on, Jack found it difficult to let go of the past. He remained deeply in love with Leah, his heart aching at the thought of her with another man. His friends and colleagues noticed the change in him, his once cheerful demeanor replaced by a quiet sadness. Jack's attempts to rekindle his relationship with Leah were met with hostility, further deepening his despair. Derek, meanwhile, harbored his own grudges. He resented Jack for the hold he still seemed to have over Leah, and his violent tendencies began to resurface. Derek's jealousy and possessiveness became more pronounced, leading to frequent arguments with Leah. Despite this, Leah remained committed to Derek, convinced that their love was worth the turmoil. As the months passed, the tension between Jack, Leah, and Derek grew, setting the stage for the tragic events that were about to unfold. The love triangle, fraught with jealousy and resentment, would soon explode in a manner that would shock the entire town of Greenfield and leave a trail of devastation in its wake. The crisp autumn morning was shattered by the piercing scream of Mrs. Henderson, Jack's elderly neighbor, as she discovered his lifeless body sprawled across the living room floor. She had come over to check on Jack after noticing that his mail had piled up over the past few days. Her concern quickly turned to horror as she stumbled upon the gruesome scene. The local police were called immediately, and within minutes, Detective Sarah Lawson and her team arrived at the scene. The sight that greeted them was both disturbing and puzzling. Jack's body lay in a pool of blood, his face contorted in a grimace of pain. There were signs of a violent struggle, with furniture overturned and broken glass scattered across the floor. As the forensic team began their meticulous work, Detective Lawson interviewed Mrs. Henderson. The elderly woman, still visibly shaken, recounted her discovery and her interactions with Jack in the days leading up to his death. She mentioned hearing raised voices coming from Jack's house a few nights before but had assumed it was just another argument between him and Leah. Leah and Derek were quickly brought in for questioning. Leah appeared distraught, her eyes red from crying. Derek, on the other hand, was stoic, his expression unreadable. Detective Lawson noted the stark contrast between the two, her instincts telling her that there was more to their story than met the eye. Leah recounted her last interaction with Jack. She claimed that she had not seen him for several days and that their last conversation had been about finalizing the sale of their former home. Derek corroborated Leah's account, stating that they had spent the night of Jack's death at his apartment, miles away from the crime scene. Despite their alibis, Detective Lawson couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She ordered a thorough search of Derek's apartment and began to dig deeper into his past. The initial results of the forensic analysis pointed towards a struggle, with Jack having put up a significant fight against his attacker. There were signs of blunt force trauma to his head, suggesting that he had been struck multiple times with a heavy object. The discovery of a bloodied baseball bat in Jack's garage further complicated the investigation. The bat had Jack's fingerprints on it, but there were also smudges that suggested someone else had handled it. Detective Lawson sent the bat to the lab for further analysis, hoping it would provide a crucial lead. The townspeople of Greenfield were abuzz with speculation. Theories ranged from a robbery gone wrong to a crime of passion. Jack's friends and colleagues were interviewed, painting a picture of a man who was deeply troubled but not without enemies. Leah and Derek's tumultuous relationship became a focal point of the investigation, with many suspecting that their involvement went beyond just an affair. Detective Lawson knew that unraveling the truth behind Jack's death would require piecing together the fragmented lives of the people involved. The love triangle between Jack, Leah, and Derek was fraught with complexities, and she was determined to uncover every hidden detail, no matter how dark or disturbing. The investigation into Jack Thompson's murder began in earnest, with Detective Sarah Lawson leading the charge. Her first step was to establish a timeline of events leading up to Jack's death. Detective Lawson and her team conducted interviews with neighbors, friends, and family, meticulously reconstructing the final days of Jack, Lila, and Derek. The neighbors offered a trove of information. Several reported hearing loud arguments from Jack's house in the days leading up to his death. One neighbor, Mr. Parker, claimed to have seen a shadowy figure lurking near Jack's property late at night, though he couldn't provide a detailed description. Another neighbor, Mrs. Green, mentioned seeing Lila leaving Jack's house in a hurry the day before his body was discovered. Detective Lawson also interviewed Lila's colleagues at the hospital. They described her as a dedicated nurse, but noted that she had become increasingly distracted and agitated in recent months. One colleague, Susan, recalled Lila confiding in her about the stress of her divorce and her volatile relationship with Derek. Susan mentioned that Lila had expressed fear for her safety several times, hinting at Derek's violent tendencies. The investigation also delved into Derek's background. Detective Lawson uncovered a history of violence, with Derek having been in and out of prison for various offenses, including assault and armed robbery. She interviewed some of Derek's former associates, who painted a picture of a man prone to explosive outbursts and a deep-seated need for control. One former associate, Mike, mentioned that Derek often talked about getting revenge on those who wronged him. Despite Derek's troubling past, his alibi for the night of Jack's murder seemed solid. However, Detective Lawson couldn't ignore the growing evidence suggesting that Derek had a motive for wanting Jack out of the picture. The discovery of Jack's blood on Derek's shoes, found during a search of his apartment, further fueled her suspicions. Lila's inconsistent statements also raised red flags. During her initial interview, she claimed not to have seen Jack for days. However, Mrs. Green's account placed Lila at Jack's house the day before his death. When confronted with this discrepancy, Lila became defensive, insisting she had only gone to collect personal belongings and had left after a brief argument. As the investigation progressed, Detective Lawson uncovered a series of text messages between Lila and Derek. The messages suggested that they had discussed confronting Jack about his interference in their relationship. The messages hinted at growing frustration with Jack and a desire to end the constant conflict. Despite the mounting evidence, the case was far from straightforward. Detective Lawson knew she needed more concrete proof to build a solid case against Derek and Lila. She ordered a thorough analysis of the crime scene, hoping to find forensic evidence linking them directly to Jack's murder. The community of Greenfield watched anxiously as the investigation unfolded. The once quiet town had become the center of a media frenzy, with reporters flocking to cover the sensational story. The pressure on Detective Lawson and her team was immense, but she remained steadfast in her determination to uncover the truth and bring justice to Jack Thompson. As the investigation into Jack Thompson's murder deepened, suspicions surrounding Lila and Derek grew more pronounced. Detective Lawson and her team scrutinized every detail, piecing together a puzzle that increasingly implicated both Lila and Derek in Jack's death. Lila's behavior became increasingly erratic. Her initial grief gave way to a defensive and hostile attitude during subsequent interviews. When questioned about her presence at Jack's house, she provided conflicting accounts, further muddying the waters. Her colleagues at the hospital noted her frequent absences and whispered phone conversations, fueling speculation about her involvement in something sinister. Detective Lawson also focused on Derek's suspicious behavior. Despite his alibi, there were inconsistencies that couldn't be ignored. Derek had claimed to be at his apartment on the night of the murder, but surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed his car on the road during the time frame in question. Though grainy, the footage provided enough evidence to warrant further investigation. The discovery of Jack's blood on Derek's shoes was a significant breakthrough. Forensic analysis confirmed that the blood matched Jack's, placing Derek at the crime scene. When confronted with this evidence, Derek's composure cracked. He denied any involvement, claiming he had been framed, but his increasingly erratic behavior only deepened Detective Lawson's suspicions. Lila's phone records revealed a series of heated exchanges between her and Derek in the days leading up to Jack's murder. The messages hinted at a plan to confront Jack and end the constant turmoil he was causing in their lives. The tone of the messages grew more aggressive, with Derek urging Lila to take decisive action. One particular message stood out. Derek had texted Lila the night before the murder saying, "It's time we take care of this once and for all." Lila's response was cryptic but seemed to indicate her agreement. The messages provided a chilling glimpse into the escalating tension between the three individuals. Detective Lawson's team also uncovered financial records revealing that Lila had recently taken out a substantial life insurance policy on Jack. The policy, worth a significant amount, named Lila as the sole beneficiary. The timing of the policy raised eyebrows, suggesting a possible financial motive for Jack's murder. As the evidence mounted, Detective Lawson knew she needed a confession to solidify the case. She decided to apply pressure on Lila, hoping to exploit the cracks in her story. During a tense interrogation, Lila finally broke down. She admitted to visiting Jack's house the day before his death but insisted that she had left before anything happened. She claimed that Derek had become increasingly unhinged, pressuring her to cut all ties with Jack. Detective Lawson also re-interviewed Derek's former associates, focusing on his violent tendencies and potential motives. Mike, the former associate who had mentioned Derek's vengeful nature, revealed that Derek often spoke about wanting to eliminate anyone who threatened his relationship with Lila. Despite the mounting evidence against Derek, the investigation faced a critical juncture. Detective Lawson needed concrete proof to link Derek directly to the crime. She ordered a comprehensive search of Derek's apartment, hoping to uncover the final piece of the puzzle that would bring justice to Jack Thompson. As the investigation continued, Detective Sarah Lawson delved deeper into Derek Stone's past. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that Derek was a man with a history of violence and a potential for revenge. Derek's criminal record revealed a series of offenses dating back to his teenage years. He had been involved in gang activities, petty thefts, and assaults. His most serious conviction was for armed robbery, which had landed him in prison for several years. During his incarceration, Derek had been involved in multiple altercations with other inmates, further highlighting his violent tendencies. Detective Lawson interviewed some of Derek's former associates, hoping to gain insight into his behavior and motives. Mike, the associate who had previously hinted at Derek's vengeful nature, provided a chilling account of Derek's time in prison. According to Mike, Derek developed a reputation for being ruthless and unforgiving, often targeting those who crossed him or posed a threat. One former associate, Steve, recounted a particularly disturbing incident. Derek had been involved in a violent altercation with another inmate who had insulted him. The fight left the inmate severely injured, and Derek showed no remorse. Steve described Derek as a man who thrived on control and power, traits that only intensified during his time behind bars. Detective Lawson also discovered that Derek had a history of unstable relationships. His ex-girlfriend, Lisa, came forward with her own harrowing account of their time together. Lisa described Derek as charming and attentive at first, but his demeanor quickly changed. He became possessive and abusive, isolating her from friends and family. She eventually managed to escape the relationship but remained fearful of Derek's potential for violence. Lisa's account provided further insight into Derek's character. She mentioned that Derek often spoke about his desire for revenge against anyone who wronged him. He harbored deep-seated grudges and was willing to go to great lengths to settle scores. Detective Lawson realized that Derek's relationship with Lila and his resentment toward Jack fit this pattern perfectly. Armed with this new information, Detective Lawson intensified her efforts to find concrete evidence linking Derek to Jack's murder. She ordered a comprehensive search of Derek's apartment, hoping to uncover any items that could connect him to the crime scene. The search yielded several pieces of potential evidence, including a set of keys that matched the locks on Jack's house and a blood-stained shirt hidden in the back of Derek's closet. Forensic analysis confirmed that the blood on the shirt matched Jack's, providing a direct link between Derek and the crime. This discovery was a significant breakthrough, but Detective Lawson knew it was not enough on its own to secure a conviction. She needed a confession or additional evidence to solidify the case. Detective Lawson decided to confront Derek with the new evidence, hoping to elicit a reaction. During the interrogation, Derek's composure began to crack. He vehemently denied any involvement, but his increasingly erratic behavior suggested otherwise. Lila, who had been brought in for questioning once again, appeared visibly shaken when confronted with the evidence against Derek. In a desperate bid to save herself, Lila began to distance herself from Derek. She claimed that he had manipulated her, and that she had been too afraid to leave him. Lila's statements, while self-serving, provided further insight into the toxic and dangerous nature of her relationship with Derek. Detective Lawson was acutely aware that she was on the brink of solving the mystery, but she needed one final piece of evidence to close the case. As the investigation reached a critical point, new evidence and unexpected revelations further complicated matters. Detective Sarah Lawson and her team were determined to unravel the web of deceit surrounding Jack Thompson's murder. A major breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a former inmate named Tony, who had once shared a cell with Derek. Tony came forward with crucial information, revealing that Derek had confided in him about his plan to eliminate Jack. According to Tony, Derek was frustrated by Jack's continued presence in Lila's life and had boasted about his intention to remove the problem once and for all. Tony's account strengthened the theory that Derek had premeditated the murder. He provided specific details that matched the evidence found at the crime scene, including the use of a baseball bat as the murder weapon. Tony's testimony was a game-changer, offering the corroboration Detective Lawson needed to build a solid case against Derek. However, the investigation took an unexpected turn when Lila's secret was uncovered. Detective Lawson's team discovered a series of hidden bank accounts in Lila's name, containing large sums of money she had been siphoning off over the past few years. This revelation raised questions about Lila's true motives and her potential involvement in the murder. Lila's financial records revealed that she had been planning to leave Derek and start a new life, saving money in secret and waiting for the right moment to make her escape. This new information painted a different picture of Lila, suggesting she might have had her own reasons for wanting Jack out of the way. When Detective Lawson confronted Lila with the evidence of the hidden bank accounts, Lila broke down. She admitted to being trapped in a toxic and abusive relationship with Derek and confessed that she had feared for her life, planning to escape. However, she insisted that she had no involvement in Jack's murder, claiming that Derek had acted alone, driven by his own jealous rage. As the investigation unfolded, another twist emerged. A third party, previously unknown to the investigators, was discovered to have had contact with both Lila and Derek. This individual, named Ryan, was a former colleague of Derek's from his criminal days. Ryan had recently been released from prison and had reconnected with Derek. Detective Lawson brought Ryan in for questioning, hoping to uncover his role in the case. Ryan admitted to meeting with Derek and Lila on several occasions but denied any involvement in the murder. However, his inconsistent statements and nervous demeanor suggested he was hiding something. The investigation took a dramatic turn when Ryan's fingerprints were found on the baseball bat used to kill Jack. Under intense interrogation, Ryan finally cracked. He confessed that Derek had enlisted his help in carrying out the murder, promising him a share of the life insurance money that Lila had taken out on Jack. Ryan revealed that Derek had planned every detail, from the initial confrontation to the disposal of evidence. Ryan's confession provided the missing piece of the puzzle, implicating both Derek and himself in the murder. Lila's role remained unclear, but the evidence suggested that she had been a pawn in Derek's twisted game. Detective Lawson knew the case was far from straightforward, but she was determined to bring those responsible to justice. With Ryan's confession in hand, Detective Sarah Lawson prepared for the final confrontation. She knew that Derek Stone would not go down without a fight and braced herself for a tense and potentially dangerous encounter. Detective Lawson and her team planned a coordinated effort to arrest Derek, deciding to approach him at his apartment, where he had been staying with Lila. The element of surprise was crucial, as they anticipated that Derek might attempt to flee or react violently. On the day of the operation, the team moved swiftly and efficiently. Detective Lawson knocked on Derek's door, her heart pounding with anticipation. Derek answered, his expression a mix of surprise and defiance. Detective Lawson presented the evidence and Ryan's confession, informing Derek that he was under arrest for the murder of Jack Thompson. Derek's reaction was immediate and explosive. He lunged at Detective Lawson, shouting accusations and threats. The officers quickly subdued him, but not before Derek managed to land a few blows. His resistance only reinforced the image of a violent and unstable individual, further sealing his fate. As Derek was taken into custody, Lila was brought in for questioning once again. The revelation of Ryan's involvement had shaken her, and she seemed genuinely terrified of Derek. Lila insisted that she had been unaware of the full extent of Derek's plan and had never intended for Jack to be harmed. Despite Lila's claims, the evidence suggested that she had at least some knowledge of Derek's intentions. Detective Lawson pressed her for details, hoping to unravel the final threads of the case. Under intense questioning, Lila admitted that she had suspected Derek was planning something but had been too afraid to confront him. The climax of the investigation came when Derek, now facing the reality of his situation, decided to cut a deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he agreed to provide a full confession and implicate Lila in the planning of the murder. Derek's confession was chilling, detailing the calculated and cold-blooded manner in which he had orchestrated Jack's death. Derek revealed that he had manipulated Lila into taking out the life insurance policy on Jack, promising her a future free from financial worries. He then enlisted Ryan's help, using his former associate's desperation and loyalty to carry out the crime. Derek admitted that he had been driven by jealousy and a desire for control, unable to tolerate Jack's continued presence in Lila's life. Confronted with Derek's confession, Lila broke down completely. She admitted to her role in the plan, though she maintained that she had never intended for Jack to be killed. Her fear of Derek and her desire for freedom had clouded her judgment, leading her down a dark and tragic path. With both Derek and Lila in custody, the case against them was solid. The legal proceedings moved swiftly, with Derek receiving a life sentence for his role as the mastermind behind the murder. Lila, though complicit, received a lesser sentence due to her cooperation and the evidence of her abusive relationship with Derek. The town of Greenfield, though forever changed by the events, found a renewed sense of unity and resilience. The legacy of Jack Thompson lived on, serving as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of seeking justice for those who could no longer speak for themselves.